Well, can you maybe just tell us what drew you to this character then?
I was more drawn to the project by the film itself, by the director. I love horror films essentially, and I've always wanted to be in one. So this was a kind of tick of the box for me, and hopefully I'll be in more. But I kind of love the genre, and I think I remember the game, and sort of I remember the first film. So yeah, that's more what drew me, and also the director. I love Michael, and he had a real clear vision for it, so that's what drew me in. But the character, without saying too much, is an interesting one. He's got things he has to hide, which is always quite complex and interesting to play. I think that's probably what drew me in.
If you had your pick in a horror film, would you have more fun, you think, playing the survivor or like the monster killer?
I'd love to do a death. I've never died. I'd love to have a 5-star death.
Horribly or simply, like grossly, or?
Yeah, like a really horrible death. I'd love to do that. Yeah.
So you're hardcore into horror movies then? Like
kind of, but you have to see if I do in this.
Yeah.
So who knows? But yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'd love to.
Like what type? Do you like the cerebral kind, the creepers, or do you like all-out gore fests?
I like psychological ones. I mean, my favourite horrors would probably be The Shining, and weirdly, a lot of people disagree with me on this one, but the Ring, the American version.
Oh yeah. Very
I love that film.
Very
It's just no, the Japanese version, but I kind of like the American version better. And Wicker Man, which again, like this film, it shares weird things with that film, in that it's all about a strange town full of people who no one can quite suss out and are a bit off and then do horrible things, horrible immoral things. I love that concept of walking into a town where everyone's backwards, twisted.
What drew you to Southville is known for the psychological and weird aspects of it, like being an alternate reality, going into worlds. Is that what drew you to it?
I think so. Yeah, I think it did. I love how the first one. It's scary, not so much for the jump factor, but it's more that it really messes with your head. The whole thing is kind of bizarre and quite surreal. And I like ones that happen painted on kind of overall painted on a feeling of fear on it, rather than that kind of that jump factor. I think it is more my type of horror film than some.
Can you talk about when you were attached to production and it kind of was getting underway and you were maybe kind of going through the games and doing research or just looking into them? What was your reaction when you kind of learned more and more about what these games are like, what kind of monsters they kind of have in them and things like that?
Yeah, I'm not good at playing these games. I discovered that when this first came out when I was much younger, and I got at it and I didn't like it. I didn't like playing it because it scared me. And I went back to it for research for this, and I have to say, that research with it did scare me. That walking around and figuring things out and wondering whether you've done the wrong thing, or and there not being an absolute definite direction you have to go in. People creeping up on you and you don't know who to trust. That kind of stuff really disturbs me, especially when you're playing it, because when you're watching it, you kind of know, you disattach. But when you are the character, when you're playing it on the computer, it's for some reason far more scary. So I'm not very good at playing, so maybe on the screen, hopefully I will be, but not in the video game.
What was it like working with Michael?
Great. I hadn't met Michael before I auditioned for this. I auditioned for it and we instantly struck a bond. I really like him. I loved his vision for it. He knows this game backwards. He's been working on it, and he has goes into a huge amount of detail when he talks about it. And it put a hell of a lot of trust in me that he did the right thing with this film. And so that's that was a big part of me becoming involved with it. Was that I really got on with him. And when we were over in Canada, it was just kind of almost. It's always nice to be with another Brit, So he's from very close to where I live in England, so we have that in common as well.
You seen your statue? Yeah, your Dark Horse statue. Don't you have one? Pretty sure they did.
Of Silent Hill.
No, for Game of
Game of
Thrones.
Thrones.
Yeah.
No, they sent me something about that recently, and I didn't look at it properly. What was it?
Well, what's your character on Game of Thrones? I'm not as familiar, but I'm pretty sure it was you.
Jon Snow.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, like, has it got the wolf next to
Him, yeah, with the wolf, and you haven't seen it?
Yeah, no, they sent me this.
Oh, dude, it looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks fine. But how big is it? Like, it's like, oh, so we're gonna get me one of those.
Put you in touch before you leave today.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, I know that's in production right now, and that this season, more so than other seasons, has some pretty big twists and stuff happening in it. Can you talk a little bit about spoilers? I know you can't say anything about where you filmed, what kind of stuff you guys have filmed, and how do you think the audience, American TV audiences especially, are going to react to some of the more shocking things that transform this season?
So, first and foremost, this season we're all extremely excited, maybe more so than any other season. It's got some wonderful storylines, some brilliant new characters. I'm not just saying this and waxing over about it. It's going to be, hopefully, a stunning season. There's more money been put into it, the budget's increased. But I think, like the first season, with Sean Bean's death, it's like an impact season. It's like, okay, it's here, right? And the second season was more sort of storytelling. It was you were growing with the character. The third season is another impact season. Big things happen. I'm not going to spoil it because you haven't read the books and don't know what happens. But yeah, it's put it this way. After this season, I hope people stick with it because it tests an audience's patience. This show.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was asking. I remember how people reacted to just Sean's death in the first season, and having read all of the books, we're taking side bets about how many people, because it is so many shocks that come in this season, and how is it on set, knowing all these things are coming? Has it changed the atmosphere from at least your piece of it, or is it still pretty much?
We're all just more excited than ever about it, and I'm not going to say anything that might give stuff away about what happens this season. But yeah, the feeling on set is just, we're all just a big family, and unfortunately I get separated off from the rest, so I never get to see anyone. But when we do, we're all just kind of, it's amazing seeing a group of actors, directors, whoever, crew, all get really, really into what's going to happen, like trying to figure out where the story's going to go, and everyone's got their own theories about how the whole thing will end. And when you know that when people are who are involved with it, having proper geek out chats on set, you're in something that people really care about. So yeah, we're really just a big family, and this season I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing what the reaction will be.
Do you guys ever try to butter up George R.R. Martin to make sure your characters, because he's still in the process?
Slipping bits of money, like presents. Yeah, don't piss him off, otherwise, your character might get killed in a really horrible way.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky,
Which world is scarier, Silent Hill or Game of Thrones?
Silent Hill, they're scary in different ways, aren't they? I know that's a cop-out, but they are. My bit of the story in Thrones, the horror element of that, weirdly, I'm in sort of the most horror element of Thrones, and also in this horror movie, so they're not so worlds apart than you think that they are, these two things.